My guest today is a journalist and drag queen who embodies the word fashion in more ways than one. You've read their written work in The Cut and seen them perform in places like Bushwick. I'm happy to have with me today Dynasty.
Hello.
So let's start with a few firsts for you. So firstly, when and what was your first exposure to drag?
My first exposure to drag was watching it on TV, actually, on RuPaul's Drag Race. I remember my friend in high school was like, "Have you heard of this show before?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" And I watched it, and I guess my life changed. Is that so cliche? Like, oh my God, I watched RuPaul's Drag Race, and then
Was it love at first sight for you?
it was. It was a way of expressing myself that I hadn't thought about before, and a whole new world opened up.
And what season did you start with, if you recall?
It was season 6. And then when I saw season 7, which, like, I guess I'm by no means am I like, oh my God, I love RuPaul's Drag Race kind of person. But like, but when I watched season 7, I was like, oh, wait, like drag can be like a fashion forward thing as well, you know?
Who was the queen that did that for you, or who were the queens that did that for you?
Oh gosh, this is so bad. I mean, maybe it's not bad because she looked beautiful, but Pearl, honestly.
Okay.
Complete honesty, I was like, oh wow, she looks great.
Okay. That's fair enough. And then another first for you is, when did you first start getting into fashion?
My entire life, I don't remember when there wasn't a time where I was very considerate of how I presented myself to the world. Like, even when I was really little, like a toddler, early memories, I remember like mom laying out clothes to go to church. And I was like, can I wear this? And it was the dress that she laid out for my cousin.
Huh.
And she was like, no, you can't wear that. And then, like, as I grew up, I was just always like into fashion.
How would you describe your drag aesthetic?
When I first started out, it's transformed a lot. I'll say that first. When I first started out, I wanted to be like this regal presence, like give off a regal energy. Like, I would wear crowns that I found at like Halloween Adventure on 14th, and and it's drastically changed as I started to like perform and pick songs that I thought felt right to perform to. And now I love still being regal, but it's taken more of a like ethereal glam direction, if I had to describe it. I'm very much a kind of performer that is like, I'll do what I'm feeling in the moment. So it's constantly changing. And that's the cool thing about drag, is that you could just be who you want in that moment when you're feeling it.
How do you find these aesthetics?
Well, I see a lot of images and videos. I'm like constantly barraged by like fashion, just by like my line of work day to day.
Yeah.
And what I used to do before like I actually worked in fashion is I would go on Vogue Runway and just kind of like go through things really quickly. And I would like absorb it subconsciously, I guess. And so then it translated to like going shopping and then like kind of picking things that I like would see but also felt right for me.
How, if at all, has doing drag impacted both your sense of fashion out of drag and your fashion writing as a whole?
So fashion has impacted my drag by being extremely thoughtful about the things that I'm putting on and how things work together, like visually. Being really considerate about how a piece of clothing might interact with jewelry that I want to style it with, or like hats, gloves, accessories. And the cool thing about like the relationship between the two is that one can be very practical, but drag brings it to like a whole other level of just fantasy and fun and becoming a whole other person. So that's how fashion impacts my drag. But in terms of being a queen and working in fashion, I would say it definitely lends to my attitude of just being fearless and like not being afraid of voicing myself, expressing myself. And I think it's translated extremely well because I've gotten so much support from like my coworkers and like editors, and like even the editor in chief is super supportive of it. And I think it's appreciated and welcomed, and it's amazing.
Would you say that it's had an impact on how you write, how you approach writing, what you write about?
Definitely. I think everything that I see in the world, write about, or see in fashion is always through a lens of being like a queer person of color. I will say that maybe not necessarily being a drag queen, but I think being a part of a community that uplifts QTPOC definitely changes the way that I approach things. Like, I'm not like top of the totem pole, so I can't make decisions that are like, we need to feature like all like QTPOC.
Yeah.
But I try where I can to like give voice to the community that I'm a part of, and I hope that I can more as I continue to climb the ladder to success, I guess.
Gotcha. So you did a lot of work as a stylist and work hands-on in industry before you became an editorial assistant at The Cut. What prompted you to make the shift towards writing?
I honestly did not make a like concrete decision that like, oh, I'm going to leave styling and go into writing. It happened very fluidly. When I was doing styling and assisting, I was working with people who were very much from that like luxury, exclusivity, whitewashing aspect of fashion. And I knew in my heart that something was wrong. Like I was like, this is not where I want to be. Like I'm completely on the wrong path. And another woman that I would assist, she's like this crazy Asian woman from London. She brought me onto The Cut while she was there temporarily. And the team, I guess, liked me and the stuff that I was doing. So they asked me to stay. And a year later, they can't get rid of me.
That's great. On the topic of writing, you've very much been immersed in the world of fashion. What's the hardest thing about writing about something you're so well versed and so a part of?
That's actually something that I struggle with, is something that is so intuitive to you. Like, how do you write about it? Like, how do you put to words something that just comes natural to you? And that is honestly like what I am learning now, learning how to do better by just being assigned like stories and collaborations, being able to look at something and put to words what I'm seeing and what's happening. And it's always much more interesting when there's context behind it. Like it's always cool when like a designer or a brand has some sort of story or like background that they can impart onto their fashion, you know.
So what are the designers, fashion lines, and collections that have influenced your aesthetic both in and out of drag?
Right now, I've been super inspired by Area. They're based in New York. It's super glamorous and embellished with rhinestones. Are you familiar?
I am not, but I do love rhinestones.
Yeah, so they make dresses like with all of this like beautiful rhinestone netting, and like they'll like take a blazer and crop it and add like rhinestone trim to it, which inspired my Bushwig look. So it's fantastical, but it's also something that I could see just like a super fabulous person walking down the street in to go to like their daytime job. Like, can you imagine that fantasy? Like a rhinestone blazer, like walking into your job in like Midtown.
It's the most fabulous thing. What do you think is the biggest issue that's plaguing the fashion world that isn't being talked about enough?
This is something that I think about all the time, is like activism and like being politically and socially active and in fashion is kind of like a facade almost. And that's what it feels like. It feels like a marketing gimmick. Like it feels like these brands with like so much money, so much power, especially in certain brands are part of like huge conglomerate corporations.
Of course.
Yeah. And they'll like come out with a t-shirt that's like, we're all feminists or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say specifics.
Hmm.
People know people know, but
Yeah. Exactly.
it's like, okay, like you could put that on the runway, but like, what are you doing fiscally or actively to actually lobby and like implement policies or work towards, you know, actually writing things into legislation or raising money for organizations? Like, that doesn't happen. It's all just an image. And I hate that. There's so much work to do in that regard.
Where do you draw the line between cultural appropriation and just appreciation and influence?
It's always hard to tell, like, if the agent is knowledgeable on the culture
Mhm.
that they're like appreciating or appropriating. Um, I mean, I think it is important to hold people accountable, but it's also hard to tell. Maybe I'm not the right person to ask for this because I think it's a gray area, but with like some things, like, I don't know. There are some things where, like, if a brown person is wearing a certain thing that's part of their culture and it makes them discriminated against as opposed to like a white person doing it.
Mhm.
I think an example of that is like box braids.
Mhm.
Like if a white person is doing it, it's like edgy or like cool or
Yeah.
whatever, something stupid like that.
Mhm.
Whereas like if a black person does it, it's like, you know, it's not
Yeah.
acceptable for some reason.
Mhm.
I think like those things are a little bit more clear than like a white person wearing a kimono, for
Mhm.
example.
Yeah.
Because that happens all the time, but people aren't necessarily having like a in-depth debate about it, you know?
Did you see that Twitter thing? It was like last year or like a few months ago about the girl that wore a kimono to prom. And then it was like a white girl, and people got angry at her. And like
I
apparently
remember that, yeah.
there was like surprisingly split opinions on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like one of those things. I mean, I'm not Japanese, so maybe I'm not like the expert on this topic, but I mean, Japan is one of those countries that's always been like a world power economically and like like politically.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's not as bad as like, I don't know, like a white person wearing something in like a poor area of Southeast Asia or something. You know what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
um,
It's a matter of, I guess, like influence and power that
yeah,
the party that is being copied or influenced from.
yes, that's how I see it. And that's like I said, it's not black and white at
Yeah.
all. Like, there's so many cultures in this world and people who come from different cultures that it's hard to like pinpoint every person and like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
their intentions or whatever.
Exactly. To shift a little bit, you spent some time in Paris learning international marketing.
Oh my gosh, how do you know all of this?
You do your research.
I'm
You-
like, whoa.
You do your research. So, what is the most important lesson you learned with your time in Paris, not related to what you were studying?
Okay. I learned to let go. I'm like such a control freak, and when I got there, I like lost control because I wasn't in control, and I like freaked out because I was in like in a new place. I was like, I definitely don't fit in. I mean, do I fit in anywhere? No. But yeah, I learned to like let go and just go with it. And like being in a new place, you just kind of want to like, it taught me how to just like absorb like culture and like people and experiences around me. I was really bad at going to class when I was there, so that's why.
Yeah, you were there for like a year, right? More or less.
Half a year.
Mhm.
And yeah, I didn't really take school that seriously as much as like I should have. I definitely took more seriously just like exploring and making friendships and
That's honestly,
meeting people.
yeah, that's just as valuable, if not more so.
I think so.
Yeah, especially you're in Paris. From an outsider's perspective, it's just how can you not just Lose yourself for a little while on there.
Exactly. And then I brought that attitude with me to New York.
Have you faced adversity as a queer Asian person either within the world of fashion or the world of drag? If so, how has it manifested itself?
Growing up in Missouri, absolutely. I wasn't aware of it per se because that was all I knew. But like I would get called like a chink
Mm.
and like it's like what? Who says that? I guess people in Missouri. But
Nope.
I
Not just Missouri.
everywhere, yeah. Yeah, because it happened to me it happened to me recently actually here, like walking down the street in Brooklyn. But so that is more related to I guess being Asian. Um and as like I started to go to college and like leave the nest, because how I grew up like wasn't the best place to like bloom as a queer person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of started when I went to school in Philadelphia
Mm-hmm.
and I started experimenting with like my style more and like how I perceive the world, I guess, and walk through the world and interact with it. And I literally had like one really good girlfriend in school, and everyone else was just like so mean,
Mm.
would just give me awful looks. Like I felt laughed at. And that's when I started to do like my makeup in like my dorm room by
Oh.
myself
Oh.
and like just take selfies. And I would just post them.
That's wholesome.
Yeah, and that's how I started out. But then there was always this like lingering thought. I was like, all of these kids definitely think like I'm a total weirdo, like I'm a homo, like yeah, I'm a homo, whatever. Um, and yeah, I mean, I still get called like the F word to this day. Like people yelling it from their cars or like shouting it on the street late at night when
Mm.
they're feeling courageous, I guess.
Yeah.
And like I was wearing these jeans. Like to me these are just like wow, these jeans are so casual and I was just wearing them with a t-shirt at
Oh, those are fabulous.
Aren't
My
they
God.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess it's not like a rhinestone embellished blazer, but
No,
like
they're fun and stylish, damn it.
but like I got so many looks at the airport literally like 2 days ago and I was like, what? And of course, like the only person that was like, hey, your outfit is cool was like another like person of color that was working at the gift shop. And I was like,
Hell yeah.
I see you. Like among all of these like stupid like businessmen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then in terms of drag, have you felt any adversity?
I mean, not like aggressively, like outwardly saying someone coming up to me and being like, you are a drag queen and that is disgusting.
Mhm.
I mean, even with my family, it's like I'll start with my family and then like friends and then move to strangers.
Mhm.
But within my own family, some of them are like, oh, like, yeah, that's really cool that you're doing that. And
Mhm.
some are like, if I bring it up, they won't talk about it.
Oh.
Um, and like, I haven't told my dad that I do drag, especially like just coming from like a conservative,
Yeah.
like Asian immigrant family. That's always something that I've been really nervous about
Mhm.
is opening up to him about that.
Yeah.
My mom knows, and I literally told her like a year after I started doing drag,
Mhm.
and like she's been really supportive. So family is like half and half. It's a little
Yeah.
like some people are supportive and some people are not
Mhm.
supportive, and there's nothing that I can do about that.
Yeah.
With like friends or like people who I used to be friends with, like people around our age have been really supportive. If I'm like walking someplace with my sisters, like usually we all try to like travel together.
Mhm.
Like I live with West Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're roommates. And I like hang out with a bunch of the girls all the time and we're always kind of like walking around together. And people will totally yell out awful stuff to us.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, that's why we're doing it. Is that so they can see us, you know?
What's the worst you ever bombed in a performance, and what did you take away from it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so one performance sticks out so much in my mind. It was within the first couple months that I started, and I was wearing like a red, like super sexy, like latexy, like BDSM-esque like look.
Hell yeah.
And I went up on stage and like sang For Once in My Life by Stevie Wonder.
That's
I
iconic.
think I think everyone in the audience was confused. And like I didn't know the key and I was like, "Oh my god, what is happening?" And one of the newer girls who like I'm friends with now came up to me like maybe like half a year ago and was like, "Hey, do you remember that performance that you did?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" Like I don't want that out there at all. And she was like, "Honestly, like it really inspired me to just be fearless." And I was like, "Why?" Because I was embarrassing myself, which was funny, but
If she could do something so fucking outrageous, god damn it, why should I worry?
yeah, that was a moment. I remember someone in the audience when I first started was like, "Is this karaoke?" And I was like, "Wow, the shade."
My that's terrible, but that's pretty funny. I'm sure you weren't laughing about it at the time.
I don't even remember what I was thinking at the time. I think I just like really tried to block it out of my mind like right after and I was like, whatever. And then I got drunk.
Yep, that's a surefire way to do it. Do you have any advice for those interested in pursuing a career within the fashion industry?
Yes, a lot of advice. And I was actually just talking to my mom about this before I came here because she's visiting with her girlfriends from the suburbs, but
That's
unrelated. Send as many emails as you can. Like all the websites, brands, like magazines, whatever, have an email, like a contact email.
Mm-hmm.
Send your resume to as many as you can. Um, Literally DM people. That's how I got one of my jobs was literally like DMing someone being like, "Hey, I want to work with you." And they were like, "Okay, send your resume." So reaching out to as many people as possible is like, don't be ashamed of that. Like, what's the worst that'll happen? They'll say no or ignore you. Um, and be ready to work your ass off. Yeah, like literally be prepared to put in the work. Like when you first start out, you will be working 12-hour days, like give or take. And you just have to stick with it and just do it. And just have your vape pen or a J waiting for you at home so you can relax, decompress, and do it again the next day.
Cool. It's I guess similarly, like in journalism, you'll find, and I'm sure other industries too, like the concept of an unpaid internship or unpaid job. Like, hey, work for us.
It's called classism.
Yeah, is that a thing like for fashion? Like, hey, work for us for free, but you're working for a brand, so it matters.
Ugh. Honestly, I'm actually seeing more and more brands paying their interns. Like at New York Magazine, the interns are paid.
Mhm.
And what you have to do is get a part-time job.
Mm.
Um, like I remember working a couple odd jobs during my internship. And I remember one of them telling me to not come back because of the way that I was dressed.
What were you dressed?
I wore a black tank top and a black blazer with black jeans.
That's not even like that ridiculous.
That's not even that ridiculous. But I guess like as a host, you can't wear that. I don't know. I'm like, what do you want me to wear? A bow tie? I like look like I'm about to like go to my financial internship in FIDI. Like what?
Exactly. Kind of similarly, do you have any essential readings, viewing, or media consumption for those interested in getting more into the fashion world?
Read The Cut for sure. And I'm not just saying that because I work for the Cut.
Yes.
It is the most like genuine, clever, down to earth, and accessible fashion publication I think out there right now.
Hmm.
Like you read so many fashion publications and it's just like all fluff and fantastical, but that's not real life.
Hmm.
Um, so I recommend to read The Cut and to listen to Stella Bugby's The Cut on Tuesdays. She just has a variety of topics that she dives into and speaks with honesty and is so earnest and intelligent. And I think that's what fashion needs right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Like some real talk as opposed to like, oh, look at this fun little fantasy land that we live in, but are ignoring like people's problems and stories and like, it's not all roses. Is that the saying? It's not all. No.
It's not. It's something like that.
It's not all fairies.
Yeah.
Well, in Brooklyn drag scene, it is.
Yeah.
That was so stupid.
I love that. So finally, since we've been talking a lot about it, I'm gonna leave us with a one of them like SAT grand existential questions.
Oh my gosh.
What does the word fashion encompass and mean to you?
To me personally.
Yes, to you.
Okay. Oh man. Can I start out by like describing what it means selfishly to me and then what it means to me in like terms of like how I view myself in the world or like in reality?
Whatever, however you'd like to answer.
Okay. Yeah, I guess this interview is about me. So for me personally, it's like my armor. Like I wake up and I'll put on something and it makes me feel okay to go out into the world and step outside my apartment and not be the scared little person. Lately, specifically, like recently, I've been wearing a ton of color.
I can attest to this.
Yes, I am wearing a bright green, slime green shirt, and I'm carrying a pastel pink bag, which is actually toned down from the amount of color that I usually wear. But like that, in terms of fashion, is like a mental health thing also. It makes me like feel a bit more okay, like doing things day to day.
Yeah.
A little bit more cheerful, a little bit more open. And I don't know if that sounds crazy just by wearing color, but it does it for me. Just because I want to be like an open person, and doing that makes me feel like a little open ray of sunshine.
That's gorgeous.
So, so that's what fashion is for me. But in terms of like why I'm still working in it, even though there's so many countless issues, is because I think fashion is one of the most powerful industries in the world. Like we all have to wear clothes. We all consume fashion on social media, in commercials, on billboards, walking down the street. So it has the potential, keyword potential, to give voice to marginalized groups, QTPOC, and to actually like have the funds to back that up. The Aquarius in me is like taking it to like this like big like worldly like level, but that's just how I see it. So yeah.
That's perfect. With that, where can the people find you, follow you, consume your work, etc.?
Hey people, you can follow me at Reign of Dynasty, REIGN of Dynasty, on Instagram. I don't have Twitter. Maybe I should get on that.
Ooh.
And you can also find my bylines on The Cut under Andrew Nguyen, Nguyen.
Do you have any shows that you'd like to plug?
I actually don't have any shows coming up. I've been taking a little break
Okay.
for fashion reasons,
Mhm.
but now I'm like, ugh, I need to perform. So just keep a lookout on the gram.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.